Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Linda Northrup, and I am the mayor of Agoura Hills, the town that you're in right now. And I just wanted to say a couple of words as we get started this morning. First of all, I want to thank so much the Hilton Foundation, who has again made their wonderful facility available for us to use to help all of the people who have been affected by everything that's happened in this region. And they've just been so generous. This was the Disaster Recovery Center, FEMA Center, and they've really just been great in getting it up and running and all the lights turned on for us. So we want to thank the Hilton Foundation. I also want to thank Commissioner Ricardo Lara for putting this event together. He has a very long history of contribution and public service. He's now our insurance commissioner. He has served on the Assembly. He's served on the State Senate. He has been instrumental in doing things that have benefited our community for many, many, many years. And we could not be more thankful to have him as our insurance commissioner, and particularly at this moment, to help people in our region and frankly all over the state navigate a pretty complex question of dealing with insurance issues in the face of a tragedy where you have a lot of other issues, personal, emotional, to deal with, in addition to just dealing with the fact that you've lost everything that you own. So I hope you get a lot out of this session today. We're all here to answer questions. If there are people from the city of Agoura Hills, we have with us today, in addition to myself, Mayor Pro Tem Elise Buckley-Weber. Can you raise your hand and just let people know where you are? We have Council Member Deborah Klein-Lopez. If you are from Agoura Hills, frankly, if you're from anywhere, we're happy to talk to you. But if you are from Agoura Hills and have specific questions about our region, we're here. We're going to stay through the town hall this morning and are happy to talk to you. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Commissioner Ricardo Lara. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to be here. I just want to give an additional shout out to the council members that are here. I know we have many people from Agoura Hills, people from Malibu, and my dear friend and former seatmate in the Senate is here, former Senator Fran Pavley, or no, once a senator, always a senator, right? Is that what we say? Thank you, Senator Pavley, for being here. I know so much about the area through osmosis and just sitting with Senator Pavley for so many years in the Senate and being able to champion a lot of the same issues that we care about. We're here, and I'm proud to say we have our team of professionals here from the department to assist you, to give you the one-on-one counseling and advice on what you need as we continue this long road to recovery. We were just in Chico State last weekend talking to folks from the Paradise Fires, and I can tell you we have top-notch staff from the department who are here to answer your questions, to help you with any particular issue you might have as a result of these fires. We also have our law enforcement team here to make sure that if you feel you have been a victim of fraud or you see anything sketchy that's happening as we continue the rebuilding efforts, we have our law enforcement officials here, and we'll make those available to you as well. Just a couple of things that you should know. We have clearly more than 15 staff here today. This event is free, and we want to make sure that you also know, if you know neighbors or family members who could not make it today, we also have a toll-free number that you can see here, but we're also available for you to call, and we can open a case for you as well, or anybody who couldn't make it today. We want to just also ensure that we continue to be here for our community. The first thing I did as I got sworn as insurance commissioner is I committed that our department was going to come out to the communities. We were not going to rely just on the 1-800 number. We were actually going to take the time and come and visit the community to make sure that we not only know and understand what's happening. We took a tour earlier of some of the burn sites today, and we're going to continue to do so. As you know, now we're hearing about floods. Our department is going to be heading up to Guerneville and Sebastopol as well to help address some of those issues with the floods. And it's unfortunately the new normal that we live under here in California as we continue to tackle climate change, but know that we have an army of professionals that are here and dedicated to help you. We have a lot of the insurers here as well. So this is a unique opportunity for you to talk get your case assessed by our department, and then we will walk you over to have that conversation with your insurers as well. So we did everything possible to bring everybody that you need as you continue to the difficult road towards recovery. And that's pretty much it. I want to make sure you know that we're here for you. I'm going to pass it over to Tony Signorelli, who's my Deputy Commissioner for Consumer Services and Market Conduct, who will be here for a couple minutes to answer any general questions that you might have. This is an opportunity for you to just let us know any of unique factors, anything that you feel that we should know before we open up the workshops. And again, we'll be here throughout the day today. So if you have any questions, if there's folks that couldn't make it this morning, we'll be here till 6 p.m. Today. So feel free to call your neighbors or anybody else who couldn't make it this morning. But at the end of the day, we just want to be here for you. We understand that you've already gone through a difficult situation. Many of the neighbors that we've talked to have even said, the recovery, the physical recovery is the easy part. Sometimes it's dealing with the emotional and how do we talk to our children? How do we talk to additional family members that have gone through this traumatic experience? So we have, so I wanted to make sure we had the Department of Mental Health Services here as well to offer their services. And I believe we have Dr. Maria Martinez, who's here today from the department. So you should, if you feel you need to seek out those resources, I wanted to make those available as well. Again, know that the Department of Insurance is here to serve you. We want to make sure this isn't the last time we come out here. We're going to be out in Malibu as well. And again, it's part of our new effort to make sure that the department actually comes to the communities that are impacted and that we bring the resources to you as opposed to you just relying on the number. But again, the number is a very helpful way for us to reach out, so you reach out to us. And again, thank you for being here. I'm going to pass it over. Yes, I'll be here as well. Absolutely. So I'm going to just pass it on to Tony Signorelli now, who's our Deputy Commissioner on Consumer Services and Market Conduct, to answer any just broad questions, individual questions on your cases. We can do that during the workshops with the individual members of our staff. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was going to run through a couple of basic insurance issues and also maybe elaborate more on what we do and what services are available to you both today and after today. First, today for sure is not the only day that you have the opportunity to talk to us and get our assistance. We have, our large staff on consumer services that'll handle your questions online, questions on our 800 number. You can file a complaint or a question, and we'll assign an expert, one of our compliance officers, to it, and we will go through your case from beginning to end. If it's a claims issue, we're going to get your documents, talk to your insurance company, get with your insurance company to make sure that they're fulfilling all of their obligations that they owe you for that claim. If in addition to the claim issue you have, let's say, an underinsurance issue, we're also going to be there to follow that case from the beginning when you first signed up for that insurance, how you applied for it and what the information you provided and what information the insurance company provided to you, and then follow that policy year to year upon each renewal and see what happened, to see if there's anything there that may give us room to assist you further with that underinsurance issue. With regard to here today, if you did make an appointment, not all cases are similar, but they're not all exactly alike. And different insurance companies have different policies and different contracts. So I'm happy to answer general questions. But if you really want to talk specifics about your case, I encourage you, if you haven't already made an appointment, we have a walk-in desk that you can make an appointment, and we'll be able to see you and talk to you one-on-one with your specific information. We have several insurance companies here today, so after you've spoken to one of our officers, if there's an issue that we feel we could help you with by bringing you to the insurance company, we'll do that. Or if you want to talk to the insurance company after that, that'd be great too. A couple steps that we'd recommend that you take. First, get to know your coverages. We're a few months down the road here. We assume you've already filed your claim, you've gotten a copy of your complete policy, and you started to understand your coverages. Your structural coverage, your building, your other structures coverage, your contents and personal property coverage, your additional living expense coverage, as well as landscaping, trees, other types of associated coverages. We're also here to help you go through that. If you have your policy, or even in general, we can walk you through all of those coverages. The important part there is to understand the math, all your coverage limits, so that when you're speaking to your claims adjuster, you have at least some basis to have a level of comfort as to whether you believe that the insurance company's information they're providing you is reasonable and accurate. In most cases, it will be. We expect the insurance companies to step up, process these claims, and do the right thing, and in most cases they are. But there could be some issues with regard to miscommunication or delays. The more information you have available to you, the easier it is to get through that process. But we're always here to help you through those. Any delay you're getting from an adjuster or an insurance company, contact us, and we're happy to follow through with that issue. In addition, with regard to your structure, if you haven't already gotten it from your insurance company, you could be expecting what's called a scope of loss. A scope of loss is basically a very detailed estimate of all the components of your home: the square footage, the number of rooms, the number of windows, the quality of your roof, and kitchens and bathrooms and that sort of thing. The important part there is to make sure it's what you had, and so that when your insurance company prices that out, they're not missing windows or rooms or square footage, or your kitchen was maybe a higher quality than they priced it out at. And many times we see that really fills a lot of the gaps between what the insurance company may originally provide and what you may be able to resolve by advising them. But no, I didn't have 2,000 square feet, I had 2,300 square feet, and it's shown right here on my application or on these other documents. And that'll assist you with filling some of those gaps. In addition, with regard to inventory, we put out a notice a few months ago requesting that insurers really step up and provide as much inventory coverage as possible without you having to go through the onerous process of doing a detailed 100-page inventory or whatever it is of every stick of furniture and everything else and all your clothing in your house. Several companies have stepped up. Some have offered to pay 100%, some have offered to pay 75%, some 50% without you having to go through that inventory. And so please take advantage of that. If you believe that you have more contents than what they've originally offered, then you would at that point need to go through the inventory process. If you believe that your insurance company is offering a certain percentage, or has agreed to offer a certain percentage, let's say 75%, to their insureds, and they've only given you 25 or 30 or 50%, then approach them with it, but come to us, because we're happy to look at that issue, because they did respond back to us with the percentage that they were going to, in most cases, absent some unique situation, provide to you. So just keep that in mind. Also, what's really important is it's a fairly long process, as you're finding out. And you're going to be speaking to a lot of different people, different adjusters, different vendors, different people throughout this process, contractors. It's important to keep a diary and a log of who you speak to. And the benefit of that is twofold. First, you'll be able to recall issues and dates and times, so that if you ever have to, let's say, file a complaint with us, we'll have a good documentation trail as to what occurred, rather than just word of mouth that we have to try and figure out. Secondly, if your insurance adjuster agrees to something really significant and it's orally done and it's not in writing, you want to confirm that in writing. So you send them an email or a letter saying, this is what we discussed, you agree to pay $100,000 for this particular thing. If you believe differently, let us know, however you want to word it, but just so that there's a documentation trail that there was in fact an agreement, so that down the road, if you get a different adjuster, which we know is happening unfortunately too often in some cases, that the new adjuster is not going to say, I don't know anything about that. You'll at least have a record of that. In addition, some of you may be feeling overwhelmed, and maybe insurance is very complicated, and should I get an attorney? Should I get a public adjuster? We're not here to tell you not to seek the services of an attorney or a public adjuster, but if you do have a total loss, in most cases you're going to get quite a bit of your coverage limits without having the need to pay an expert to procure those benefits for you. So the suggestion would be, go as far as you think you can go, until you feel either too overwhelmed or you feel you're at an impasse with the insurance company. And then if you decide to take the advice or sign up with, let's say, a public adjuster, the fee that they would charge would be based on what new funds and proceeds they get for you, rather than all the other monies that you could have gotten on your own. And in total losses, you're mostly going to be getting something close to policy limits without having the need for a public adjuster or the hiring of other experts. And just really quick, if you do run into a impasse and you file a complaint with us, we have some of the staff here, and we have more staff in our, in our offices that will take your case in. And even if it's a simple issue, whether it's a delay now and we resolve that delay for you, we'll still keep your case. So if next month, if you run into a different issue on your contents or building code upgrade or whatever it might be, we'll assign you that same officer. They won't have to reinvent the wheel. They're going to be familiar with your case, and we'll be able to look at that issue more quickly and work with the insurance company more quickly to get a resolution. In the end, there are some issues that either the law or the contract or the facts will result in an impasse that we just don't have the authority to resolve. In that case, there is a statutory mediation program that we could request, that we could offer to you. It's free, and if you want to do it, it's non-binding. It would go to an outside mediator who are used to mediating cases, litigated cases and all kinds of issues throughout the state. And the insurance company will show up, and you'll show up, and you'll bring your records and information. The mediator will really attempt to bring the parties together to get a resolution. We've had pretty good success with that process. It doesn't resolve every issue. And at the end of that process, if you're not comfortable with the recommendation by the mediator, you don't have to take it. It's non-binding, so you can walk away and you've lost nothing from it. And in fact, if you do enter the mediation program, it tolls the statute of limitations so that you're also not running up against a statute of limitations, which means if you miss the statute of limitations and you decide you ultimately do have to litigate and take this to court, there are deadlines for that. This would toll those deadlines so that you do have more time to think about whether you do need to resort to litigation in the end. A couple things on various laws, and some of them are fairly recent. It used to be up until September of last year, the law was after a declared disaster such as this, you were guaranteed to get 24 months to rebuild your property in order to collect full replacement costs. After recent fires this year, we've now went to the legislature and got that increased to 36 months. And so the benefit of those new laws that went into effect prior to these events, so went into effect last September, is now 36 months plus extensions for good cause. And that's the same holds true for additional living expenses. So it used to be 24 months after declared disaster. Now it's 36 months. Plus, there's now extensions for good cause. So if you're running into good cause issues, rebuilding, lack of contractors, something that's beyond your control, then you can approach the insurance company for more time extensions from that. Now, for additional living expense, keep in mind, many policies have a dollar limit. So while you will still get 36 months with some extensions, you're still going to be running up against a potential dollar limit. So you have $200,000 in additional living expense coverage. Instead of making it last 24 months, now you need to make it last 36 months or more. So just keep that in mind. Other policies, there are a few out there that don't have a dollar limit for additional living expense. Your coverage is as long as the home is uninhabitable due to the direct physical loss of the property. And so in those cases, you won't be running up against a dollar issue, and you will be getting the benefit of the 36 months plus extensions for good cause. So there's some of the laws. Another important law is that if you're going to rebuild, you had a total loss, you're going to rebuild your structure, you have a choice. You can rebuild your structure on your current lot. You can rebuild your home on a new lot that you purchase, or you could decide to go purchase a new, already built home, not new, just an already built home, could be new or not, and still receive your full benefits. That includes your replacement cost benefit, your extended replacement cost benefits, as well as your building code upgrade coverage. So in essence, what you would do is you make sure you understand the math for what you lost. So you'd have, even though you're not going to rebuild the same house, probably even if you rebuild on your same lot, you need to understand what the math is for what it's going to cost to rebuild exactly what I lost, plus the additional coverages, building code upgrade or whatever it might be. And that's the amount of money, you have up to that amount of money to use to rebuild in another location or to purchase an already built home. Now, you're also subject to having to spend that amount. So if you, let's say your math comes out to $500 or $500,000, but your new home that you go and purchase is only $400,000, you're only eligible for that $400,000. But if you buy a home that's $500,000 or more, then you should be eligible for the full amount. So you're only eligible for what you spend, but you're eligible to up to the amount that your original home would have cost to rebuild. And just in a couple of things on renewals, if you have a total loss, your insurance company can't cancel you merely because you have a total loss, number one, and they also must renew your next renewal. So your next renewal coming up, I don't know if it's already come up or it's going to come up, they have to renew you. We encourage you to keep your policy because getting a new policy is difficult, especially if you're in a state of rebuilding. And so we encourage you to keep your property. When your insurance company, keep your policy. When your insurance company is going to renew the policy, they're required to actually have a conversation with you, either through their agent or directly, as to what your particular circumstances are. So I'm this far into my rebuild, and so what are my needs for my coverage for this coming year? Or I haven't even started rebuilding, what are my needs? I need liability, I need other things. I may not need, the high structural coverage cost. So those are things to keep in mind. And just lastly, again, please come to us with any issue you have, either a quick call on the phone or online. We can answer a quick question, or if we feel it's more in-depth, we'll invite you to file a request for assistance, and we'll take the case in and we'll really look at it. We can't resolve every issue, but we certainly can't resolve your issue if you don't contact us. Again, that's our information, and I want to thank you for coming today. And with that, I will now take any questions that you have.
Sure. They seem to be, the California Fair Plan had a moratorium. The California Fair Plan had a moratorium on in 2017 during the wildfires, and they stopped writing, homeowners for that. Are they gonna? Are they gonna play tricks again, or what's gonna go on with that?
An error on their part. The Fair Plan is the one company that is not permitted to have a moratorium in our eyes because of their theoretically they are the insurer of last resort for fire, and so that should not occur. When we did find out about it, we immediately contacted the Fair Plan, and they went back to signing, accepting applications and coverages in writing. So.
Thank you. My husband and I have a partial loss in Malibu, and we are, and my question, which I think may apply to others in this room, we're becoming all too familiar with the Xactimate program used by the insurance company. And one of the things that we're coming across is what our insurer claims to be reasonable in terms of pricing is not reflective of a high quality home in 2019 Malibu and the rates that need to be paid to restore that. How does one deal in a scenario of they're responsible for reasonable, but reasonable to, the average is very different than 90265.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. Obviously, I'll say it probably 10 more times. Come to us if you run into an issue, and we're happy to walk you through that with your individual case. But in general, when the insurance company will typically write their estimate, it's on that software. The most common one is that Xactimate software that they'll use. That's not the end of the conversation. You can go out and get an estimate. Get a contractor's estimate for what you believe is the proper remediation and or reconstruction of your home. What that does is we have regulations in place Once you've submitted an estimate to the insurance company that's higher than the estimate they provided to you, it triggers 3 options. They have to either pay the higher amount, they have to identify specific contractors that will do the work for the amount that they wrote, but only if you've requested the name of the contractors. So they can't just use that option 2 by just saying, we have 3 contractors here that'll do it for that, so we're done with our obligation. It's only if you say, hey, tell me, do you know any contractors that'll do it for that price? And they'll say, oh yeah, we have these 3. Then they can fulfill their obligation that way. The third option is they have to reasonably adjust your estimate, your contractor's estimate. And by doing so, the onus is on them to show that either certain line items or certain material costs, et cetera, are unreasonable for the specific work being done in the specific locale that it's being done. And so those are the issues that you should be aware of, but those are certainly the issues that we would look at if you were to come to us with that problem.
I live I live in a mobile home park here locally, and our insurance broker is telling us, or well, we had insurance on our home, our new home, and then they canceled it. And our insurance broker is saying, well, they're not writing in there anymore. And I don't know how that works. Do they just get to not write policies if they decide? Number one, and number two, the California Fair Plan, and we had to use a second company for liability. They won't give us full replacement value. They say, well, this is what we're giving you, and that's the end of it. Is that all okay and above board?
Well, we'd have to look at the situation, but the legislature has not given us authority to dictate or mandate that insurance companies underwrite or write insurance across the board. So they have a lot of flexibility as to deciding which homes they will decide to write or not. But what we make sure is they have underwriting guidelines. They're called eligibility guidelines or guidelines in place that describe how they're going to evaluate certain homes or all homes and make their decisions. And what we make sure is that they've done that in a consistent, non-discriminatory manner. So they need to treat you based on their guidelines. Number one, they need to follow their guidelines, and they need to treat you the same as they would others that are similarly situated. And so in many cases, if we get a complaint into us, we could look at that and see if they've made a mistake there and they should be writing you based on their guidelines. That's one thing. Second, with regard to the FAIR Plan, I think if you want to talk to us, we'd be happy to see if we can help you with that. You should be able to describe what covered, the amount of coverage that you feel you need, at least for the FAIR Plan coverages, for the fire and the coverages that you're going to be insured with FAIR Plan. They should not be dictating to you some kind of cap on how much that is. And if they are, then you should get that in writing from them so that you have a clear record of it. And if you decide to go with them, so that if something were to happen down the road and you've requested a higher amount and you have a clear documentation trail and they've said, no, we're not going to insure you for that amount, then you have a reasonable basis for them to be held liable for, or responsible to, to step up and address that. With regard to the so-called wraparound coverage or coverage that you purchased, that's a little bit different, and we'd have to know more about the situation and maybe talk to you one-on-one to get more details to better understand how we might help you with that issue.
I just have a couple quick questions. For this statutory mediation program, if that's requested, what is generally the timing that you could expect a appointment for that?
Well, first, it's required that you go through our complaint process first, and then once we reach our impasse, we'll let you know and say, here maybe we resolved a couple issues, but there's this one issue or two issues that we can't resolve. It is eligible, or maybe it might not be, but in most cases it'll be eligible for mediation, and we invite you if you want to do it. If once you say yes, we go to the insurance company and say, okay, this insured has decided to go into mediation. We'll then assign the mediator, and then they'll contact you to arrange what's mutually agreeable scheduling. It doesn't take forever, but it just really depends on the particular issue, how long it takes for you to supply maybe some documents that the mediator might be seeking, as well as the insurance company, and then scheduling it out, and then having that meeting, and then typically it's one meeting, but it could be a follow-up depending on if there's like a potential for maybe resolution. They might decide to do another meeting. But
Okay.
it's free and it's paid for by the insurance company.
Thank you. And then the follow-up, can you just talk a little bit more about a home being uninhabitable due to direct physical loss, i.e., smoke damage and illness related to debris from smoke damage?
Yes, that's a very difficult issue, especially on the standing homes with smoke damage, where it might be reasonable, 100% reasonable for you to decide and for anyone to decide that I can't live in this home, either because there's damage to my particular property or there's damage surrounding me, ash, other things that are surrounding me in terms of air quality or even utilities, infrastructure, those sorts of things. However, even though that's the case, virtually all the insurance policies will only cover the additional living expense or loss of use coverage if the home is uninhabitable due to the direct physical loss to your property. So let's say it's some outside source, there wouldn't necessarily be coverage beyond, let's say, the 2 or 3 week civil authority coverage that you might get for evacuation, et cetera, et cetera. But if you have, let's say, smoke damage, once you've remediated that smoke damage, then at that point it would be theoretically, and there's no other factors on your direct property, your insured property, which is their structure for the most part, then it would be considered inhabitable, and your insurance company would then be in a position to let you know that they may not be going further. We understand many companies are being flexible with that, take into account the circumstance from, in a non-wildfire disaster or non-disaster situation. There's typically not a lot of external factors, if your house has a kitchen fire or, that sort of thing, and there's not a lot of external factors because your neighborhood is still intact, and there's not a lot of air quality and other health issues that are out there. But with these kind of events there is, but the policy doesn't change and the language doesn't change. So that's kind of the issue where that's going to, we understand that's occurring on a regular basis. It is the issue that we're looking at in terms of is there some maybe looking forward resolution to that issue. But right now, that's what virtually every insurance contract says. However you want.
All right, great. Thanks for being here. I have a question about market conduct with respect to the 75% personal property commitment that the insurance companies have made. And when the insurance commissioner asked the insurance companies to whether or not they would agree, a lot of them did, of course, as you know. The question is whether now they're actually following through on that commitment and whether there's any leverage to follow through with them about it. And what I'm finding is that initially there was a 25% commitment, I think, up front, and instead we got 5%. Then by late December, the insurance companies, many of them agreed to 75% or more. And yet we're finding that we're still being asked either, are you willing to sit down and do an inventory with us or not, which all of us understand now is ridiculously onerous, and we have many other things, and we're overcommitted and we can't do it. Or are you willing to sit down for a shorter period of time and provide a verbal inventory? Will you do an attestation? Can you provide me pictures? And it's becoming something very similar to an inventory. And I have no personal recourse, and I don't know what's happening with all of others with similar policies. But when I called the Department of Insurance, I was told, well, you can start a claim. Okay, I can do that, but now it's become adversarial. And my hope is to not become adversarial on an individual level. So my hope is instead that, if possible, maybe there's some leverage from the Department of Insurance to go back to the insurance companies. Are they following through for all of us rather than on an individual basis? Because I'll have other issues down the road with respect to the insurance company, not just this one. So I don't want to, if I'm adversarial now, then I've sort of lost the relationship with the adjuster that I've been working on.
Understood. I mean, and just so you know, we we don't consider you filing a complaint adversarial, and 99% of the insurance companies don't either. And that's why they're here today, to resolve any of these issues that might be arising. So if your company's here, they do not consider this adversarial. There may be some issues in the end that we may agree to disagree on, but they understand the process. You know, they're licensed by us. They're by law actually not permitted to create a negative situation for you should you file a complaint with the Department of Insurance. So there shouldn't be any issues there. You're right. We did ask originally for every insurance company to offer voluntarily, because we don't have the legislative authority, 25% upfront of your contents coverage. Virtually every company said yes to that. If you aware of a company that either said yes or didn't, that we weren't aware of, contact us and we'll see what they did and what they promised, what they committed to us and what they gave to you and the reason why. A lot of that will be looking backwards. It doesn't necessarily resolve your particular situation, but we do look at that. What's called a regulatory review of every case we get, to look back and say, hey, what happened here? There was a delay. We want to fix your delay, but then we won't ignore that delay either. We'll record that delay and review that case to make sure that the insurance company is in compliance with all the rules and timelines, et cetera, and we'll let the company know when we find those sorts of things. With regard to the 75% or whatever your company agreed to, if they did commit to the 75% and there are no extenuating circumstances such as it was a vacation home or a second home that I rented out with no clothing and other things in there or that sort of thing, then they should be able to live up to that commitment, whether it's 50%, 75, or whatever that percentage is that they agreed to. And if they're not living up to that commitment, definitely let us know. And today, if they're here, we can walk you over there and make sure that we all understand what that commitment was and what you should be getting for your claim. And if it's not today, contact us afterwards.
All right, I have an inventory follow-up question. Items exist in our burnt-out backyard, like carcasses of grills and burners and things like that. Our insurance company provided an estimate of what replacement would cost. These carcasses exist, so you can measure them, etc. My husband provided them actually the true costs of these items. We have the old bills. We were able to contact the companies. My husband, mid-December, submitted to them in an Excel spreadsheet the differential. It is now March. They have not responded in any way other than, thank you, we will consider it. Likewise, we did an extremely detailed inventory so far of everything in our backyard. Submitted in December. Radio silence. What do we do? Because we are putting forth the work effort. In some cases, again, we have the stuff. We have the carcasses. Some of them have now been hauled away in debris removal, but we are getting zero traction from the insurance company, and therefore zero money for this stuff.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be happening. So obviously contact us either today or afterwards, and we're happy to work through that. The insurance company has really set time frames with which to respond once you've submitted what's called a proof of claim, which is Excel spreadsheet, sounds very like proof of claim. They have time frames with which they need to affirm or deny that claim. If they need more time, which they probably shouldn't, unless there's some
They continually, like monthly, as per their requirement, I think, send something saying we require more time. My husband continues to detail number by number. You know, concrete here, outdoor structure here, outdoor fireplace here, this grill, these lounge chairs, and radio silence other than the monthly. We require more time.
Let us take a look at that.
Okay.
And then definitely if they're here, I mean, that's why they're here, to make sure that, their management and is not.
Do I name them here? I don't name them here.
It doesn't matter, but, we'll go see them, and if they're here and.
All right, I hear some are being kinder than others.
But let us know, afterwards,
All
and
right, because we are
we'll look at it.
we are not being blind to it, putting our heads down. We're working extra hard, and the more work product we put out, and the more silence we get.
All right, that's absolutely,
just- okay.
unfair.
Thank you.
The previous California Department of Insurance Commissioner David Jones ordered that where's my question here? That some of them that dwellings automatic coverage for RCV replacement cost value coverage we would be automatically enrolled in this. Why is the California Fair Plan excluding manufactured mobile homes from that automatic roll-in?
So let me understand your question.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the Insurance Commissioner Jones requested that the Fair Plan begin offering adding replacement cost coverage on top of the actual cash value coverage on their policies.
There's a bulletin, it's
Yes.
January 2017, I
Correct.
believe, yes.
Yeah, and that
okay.
will apply to virtually all properties, but not all. So we'd have to go back and look at your situation and see whether it falls within the scope.
Mobile home,
of what was agreed
manufactured
to.
home, I had a permanent foundation on my home.
Right.
Why is it not?
Yeah, I can't
Yeah, I
answer
know,
that
and
today.
I made
but-
a complaint already with
yeah.
the insurance
So,
department,
so
but
we'll
I'm
take
letting
a
you
look
know,
at it. I'll
yeah.
see where the complaint is, and
Yes.
we can also, work that through with the
Okay,
Fair Plan.
thank you.
So we truly appreciate you guys being here today, and we'll take advantage of the individual meetings for our questions. One suggestion or request that I would have has to do with the really reporting on the insurers, because I will say that my friends and neighbors, it is an adversarial relationship. We have a contract with these companies. We pay our premiums on time, and it has been a headache, a struggle in the midst of, devastating loss. For many, more loss than my husband and I have had. So I frankly, with the exception of maybe a few very top shelf insurers like Pure and AIG Private Client or Chubb, other than those, the reports I've heard from everyone I know are horrible. I would really ask you to put out some kind of report card inclusive of the amount of complaints, the amount of difficulties, because I think these companies need to own up to it. The commercials on TV, it's just not true. And the fact is, you need to be extremely savvy to get the basic amount back from your insurance policy. And that's just not right, because there are a lot of people that aren't savvy, or that just do not have the time to fight them. And it is just unconscionable. So I would really ask you, I understand what your role is, and I understand that you need to hold them to time frames, but we need to also hold them a bit to how consumers are being treated. And it's not just about people whining about the fact that their house burned down or the fact that they didn't have enough coverage. There are real issues. The fact that this woman behind me has been filing something for 4 months that's clear, and that they just postponed it. In our case, we're on our 4th adjuster. Each time we get bumped up another level because of our loss, and they want to start from ground zero every time. And I finally said no.
Agreed. You shouldn't have to go through that, and we'll definitely look at the specific request that you made.
But I think you need to do something on a more holistic level.
Yes.
I mean,
May I please say something? I believe I followed the San Diego. There was, and I was following in San Diego. The public pressured, the California Insurance to have the teeth that the California Insurance Commissioner should have, the insurance. And I think that we as a community, please, if we can we need to get together. That if we're together, that's how we can solve the issue. So please, let's get on a Google label together, and I'll meet you in the back.
Yeah, in terms of holistically, we don't disagree at all. And I think there are a number of things that you could look at, but we're also looking at how to make that, improve that even more. We do have a ranking of insurance companies by the number of justified complaints that we get from consumers. And you can go on our website, either on homeowners or auto or life insurance, and see who are the companies that are getting the most complaints and the less complaints of the top companies. Understood. Understood. Yeah, it's something that we're definitely looking at.
Once again, thank you for hosting the event. A lot of great information. My name is Eric Cooper. I'm uniquely situated. I survived a fire in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in 2016. 14 people died, $2 billion of property damage. But my unique situation is I'm a qualified expert in risk management and insurance, but my focus is commercial property and casualty. So this is a new experience. I've been helping a lot of friends and neighbors in Malibu, and what I've come to learn is an extraordinary number of people are underinsured. So my question for the commission is, why is that? Who's responsible? Is it the insured who didn't properly provide a proper level of insurance to the quote? Is it the broker that underwrote the risk? Is it the insurance company that didn't evaluate the risk? It's not one or two, it's 99% plus. And if you don't have enough insurance, you have to file a lawsuit against the responsible party who caused the loss. So it kind of creates a bigger nightmare. But I'm wondering, is the Insurance Commission doing anything to look into the issues of why are so many people, whether it's the Camp Fire, the Woolsey Fire, any place else, so vastly underinsured?
Yeah, I agree. And we certainly look at that issue after every major event, and annually we attempt laws and regulations. We actually adopted some regulations a few years back that required insurance companies to make more complete replacement cost estimates when you sign up for your insurance, filling in some of the gaps that maybe were being left out of some of those estimates. And so we were sued on that by the insurance industry. We ended up prevailing in the end, so it is good law, and that filled some of the gaps for a going forward basis. But if you were insured for several years ago, that left them not necessarily being applicable, those more complete replacement cost estimates applicable to them. We did get a law last year that requires insurance companies to now go back on an annual or semi-annual basis and do those complete replacement cost estimates on a going forward basis. So those are some of the issues that we were looking at in terms of going forward. But in terms of who's responsible, it really depends. There's no specific statute that places responsibility one way or the other, and there isn't good case law that's in the consumer's favor to support the consumer on this particular issue.
I know Tony's giving you the department answer, and I'll tell you, this is a problem with the entire state, the issue of uninsured. I'm part of the governor's strike team in addressing this at a statewide level. We are looking at different proposed regulation or proposed model laws that allow for a conversation with the agent and the person who are buying the policy to at least notify them that the policy they're purchasing is going to still leave them underinsured. So therefore, the individual makes that decision. It essentially notifies the individual, and all the folks that you named in terms of the issue are those are all responsible, right? I mean, people are buying their first home. People don't want to pay the premium. The agent wants to sell you the product, and you enter into this contract, but there's no way of knowing for sure if folks are going to be underinsured. Are we trying to figure out how do you notify, or at least let the individual know that they're going to be underinsured moving forward, or when you make an upgrade or a cost of living adjustment? All these things are important, and right now, the insurance companies do this on a voluntary basis. We're trying to figure out how do we give people the information to make the appropriate decision for their individual properties. So we're looking at that as part of the solution as we work with the governor's strike team on this issue.
To pick up on that same question, I appear to be overinsured, which I'm finding interesting. And going back to what Ricardo's saying, it seems to me, when a year ago before the fire, when I purchased my home, the insurance agent, my State Farm agent, sent me what he recommended, and it turned out about 540 per square foot. He said, in my area, that's about what we needed. I said, oh, that's really high. So and he came back with a little less, and then I took the third option. So I have about 470 per square foot. But the same insurance company is, when they did the estimate, what's the name of the software?
The Xactimate.
Xactimate. They say that it's more like 270 per square foot. It seems to me, trying to address that issue, it's much like we buy the house. We have to have an appraisal for the mortgage. It seems that if I'm buying insurance and he's recommending it, that there would be, if the burden is on the insurance company to actually appraise the replacement right then and say that this is a confirmed amount that we both agree on, so that I wouldn't be going through the 3 months that I'm going through. I need to be focusing on rebuilding and my life and getting things together. I'm spending all of my time, literally about 20 hours a week right now, just trying to get them. I've got the contractors, they're still saying, I'm doing everything you're saying that we should do, and we're still not there, not even close. And I think one of the problems, this is my assumption, is that when they do get your dwelling to that point of whatever the agreed amount was, that 20% kicks in, plus, on my policy, the debris is additional. So you're going to end up with another $250,000 or more in my situation. I feel like there's a deliberate attempt to not get me to that amount so that they don't have to pay the addition. But my real issue is, going back to what Ricardo was saying, it just seems that there is an answer, that if the burden is on them, that if we're paying all this money, they should verify that that is the amount, or it's above or it's below. And then when it occurs, there really isn't any questions because it's had third-party validation.
And we don't disagree with that. We certainly, we would take that position wherever we can. It's just that the laws need to be beefed up, but we certainly will take a look at your particular issue. If your company is not... and I don't disagree that it could be done, it should be done. The question is, how do you get there? We're something, as the commissioner mentioned, with the governor's strike force team that we've been meeting with them every week and looking at all these different ideas to see what can be done on a going forward basis, or even resolve some of these issues. I want to remind those that do have 11 o'clock appointments. We're coming up on that now, so if you want to make your way out, you'll be met by our officers who can bring you to your appointment and start your conversation with them.
Yes, thank you for coming out. But I have a question in regards to the insurance commission. As far as, these two people talked about, well, if they file a complaint, they're concerned about having more issues with the insurance company. Like in her example, they're going to start saying, well, we need more information on what this item was worth, and how did you come up with that? And so they can make your life very miserable. So in calling the 800 number, I'm told the only way that I can find out any information is to file a complaint. Yet at the end of your talk, you said that you could request for assistance. Is that the same thing as a complaint? I have to file a complaint.
Yes, it's a request for assistance because, it's many times it's not an actual complaint. It could be, can you help us look at this particular issue or answer some questions? Not necessarily a complaint. It's the same thing, the complaint, request for assistance.
Because I was told I have to file a formal complaint first before I can talk to anybody about a situation that I don't know whether that's, am I complaining now, just putting my foot in it? Because now the insurance company is going to go, okay, this guy is a troublemaker.
It's certainly your decision, but from our experience, we're not seeing any insurance company create a worse situation than you're already in. If you're in a bad situation, then there's no harm coming to us.
You don't want to get in a worse situation than what we're already in.
So if you're already in an impasse and you're in a certain situation that you don't think is appropriate, then come to us. Again, virtually every insurance company is aware of our process and understands that we don't create an adversarial situation, and they're prohibited by law from creating an adversarial situation for you because you filed a request for assistance or complaint with us.
I have another question, and this is about stuff. Thinking that others are going to be in our situation. So we're total loss outside, we're smoked out and leaking and cracked windows and stuff inside. They've agreed total loss on certain clothing, but told me that their person, we are to have someone inventory it, but their person will assess the value of the clothing. What is our right there? Because my guess is they're going to say bulk up. 20 pairs of pants, they were $40 each, now they're $5. 30 sweaters. So what is our right there when they say, again, you can photograph it, you can give the labels, but our person is going to tell you what it's worth?
Well, I think you have a right to describe the age, condition, and value, if you have a certain value, of any particular property that you're claiming. They would then take that information in and look at it and decide whether they believe it's reasonable, and if it's not, they have certain obligations to either show it's unreasonable, et cetera. So that's one thing. Second, let's take a look at that, because in many cases the insurance companies are sending inventory adjusters out to assist with the inventory process to potentially make it less burdensome, right? So let's verify what the real purpose of that visit of that your particular adjuster is, whether it is in fact to assist you in documenting and valuing your loss, or is it to create a situation where you're getting bulk or wholesale prices attached to your items versus what you really should be owed.
They have told us they do not want to inventory. We are to have somebody photograph it. However, the insurance company insists that they, the insurance company, will then attach values to it.
Right.
We are not supposed to have
Right.
whoever's inventorying attach
Right.
value. That's
Right,
their
but you're not prohibited from doing that. You have a right to do it, and if your insurance company is, and they have an obligation once you've done it to review it and consider it and respond to it. And so there should not be a situation where you're prohibited from doing what you think is the right thing to do.
Okay, she's fine.
If we have a cap on the extended replacement costs and a cap on the laws and ordinance.
Correct. Building code upgrade, laws and ordinance, yes.
Correct, okay. So there are two separate areas here. And if the cap, since they're requiring a lot, since this house was built, there's been a lot of upgrades in the laws and ordinance, and now they're talking about having solar panels and sprinkler systems and blah, blah, blah. If the laws and ordinance portion is more than what our cap is on that, does that then go over into the extended replacement costs?
It's possible. It depends on how your specific extended replacements cost coverage is worded in your particular policy. In some cases, if it's, let's say, an extra 50%, if you hit the building code upgrade of ordinance and law cap, it will trigger another 50% of that amount. In other policies, it won't do that. So we would need to look at your specific policy. There's not a law in place that dictates which way it's required to be. It just depends on what type of policy you have with your insurance company.
I see. So it's worth a discussion with one-on-one
Yes.
to discuss this. Okay, thank you.
I want to just thank you, everyone, especially the commission, everyone who are here to help us in so many ways. What we really expect more from you, because I'm one of the victims who lost their home, and I have 2 kids, and waking up Friday morning and need to get out of my home, I had no time to pack, and in a million years I would never think I would lose everything in a second. And on top of all of that, to deal with the insurance that I trust and I believed in and I paid yearly or monthly or whatever everyone's pay, I expect more of them that to tell me it's a disaster, you have nothing to do with it, we'll help you. We need some time. I would appreciate the fact that you look over these insurance, whatever the name are. I'm sure my husband said California Fair Plan, and it's just very hard to live, losing everything, have 2 kids, and lose your job because our home had our both of job. In our home, lose the job, lose just everything that you worked very hard and built in your whole entire life, and then you have to deal with the insurance. I think it's too much, at least for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you.
Yeah, agreed. And I know that you have a case with us, a request for assistance with us. But so if you want to circle back with us, we'll make sure. Yeah, and he's already having his one-on-one appointment, and we'll see what we can do to resolve that.
Hi, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm the only one in the room dealing with this. I was a renter, and I had 24 months on my policy, and that's what I was given. But I just was told yesterday I have 60 days to move out because I now should have had a reasonable amount of time to find somewhere else to live. How am I supposed to figure out in 60 days what my rights are here?
Well, yeah, I think touch base with us on that. I mean, renter policy is going to be a little bit different with regard to what you're eligible for your additional living expense coverage. But let us take a look at it and see if we can understand the facts a little better to see if the insurance company either can be more flexible or whether they need to step up and
They told me it was a
fulfill the
case-by-case basis. So they've looked at my case and they've decided it's now been a reasonable amount of time for me to have found somewhere. And I also have no say whether the property owner is rebuilding or not. I don't know if they're rebuilding at this point. So what they're saying is, even if like the 24 months is for someone who is rebuilding a property. So why was I sold something that gave me 24 months of coverage at the case of a natural disaster and then really only given less than 6 months?
Understood, and that doesn't make sense offhand, but let us take a look at that and see if we can assist you with it.
Okay.
Again, thank you. Just a quick question. The insurance company has requested quotes for remediation work. I haven't found a company that will give a quote, verbally or in writing. And the insurance company has repeatedly in writing requested a quote, and they're pressuring me to get the work done. I'm going to be financially responsible for $30,000+ from what other people have told me for their work, and it may not include all the work. So what do I do? How do I get a commitment from a professional, non-flaky company to do the work? I apparently have signed some kind of an agreement that I was told from the company was not a commitment, but simply the right for them to speak directly to my insurance company. Now, the insurance company is not sure, but they state that I may be and quite possibly am obligated to use that company, even though I've gotten no estimate and they've done a cursory review.
Are you talking about the insurance company's remediation company that they referred to you?
Well, they initially referred someone that could not do the work for me, so I have yet to have the work done, and now the responsibility has been placed on my shoulders to find a company that will do the work. And the companies I've reached out to, none of them, and also the insurance companies people would not give me a quote, and I was asked specifically in writing to provide them, to have the company provide the insurance company a quote. Nobody will give me a quote. The company that I had come out to inspect stated, we will not ever come out just to give quotes. We're here to do the work, period. So I can't get a quote, and I can't commit to someone unless I'm committing my dollars to pay for the work in advance in hopes that the insurance company will find that to be an appropriate and not excessive amount, and that the work will in fact be done completely, including insulation replacement and all the other things that other people have done. So I'm in this quandary of where do I go? I can't yet have the work done, but I can't commit to anybody either, because the insurance won't commit to me without an estimate, which I cannot get from anybody.
At a minimum, they should be developing an estimate and making you an offer.
Who's they?
The insurance company.
They are not.
So they shouldn't be putting all the onus on you. Even though there's an advantage in you getting your own estimates and quotes to counter what the insurance company may provide to you, they should be in the position of evaluating and valuating the cost to remediate your property and providing you with their offer of settlement. And so if that's not happening, that, in my eyes, would be the first step that we would look at, and then see if we can assist you further with regard to whether there's any contractors out there, referrals, or what other people are doing in those situations to get you your estimate from the contractor that you want to do the work.
I don't care who does the work. I want the work done correctly, safely, in a healthy fashion.
Understood. And if the
there's a health issue here.
Totally understood. And if the insurance company refers you to a contractor that'll do the work, they're required to back the work of that contractor to make sure everything's done in a workmanlike manner. But let's take that first step first to make sure the insurance company is at a minimum evaluating what they believe they owe you and what documentation they're using when they made that evaluation, to see if you can then use that as at least your minimum commitment. It doesn't mean that you couldn't get more once you do go to a contractor and the cost is reasonably more. It just means that at a minimum you should know what the minimum amount is that you should be able to go out to a contractor and start that process.
Well, I can't. The thing I'm asking is, in the absence of being able to get any commitment from the insurance company as to what they will actually pay, including in the first 3 weeks, saying we have a company, they'll do it right away, but they won't do it without a quote, and you have to get a quote. I could not get a quote. I put it in writing. I am paper oriented, and I'm not litigious, but I am legally minded, and I put in everything in writing, and I cannot get a guarantee or an estimate from any of the companies. So
Understood.
where do I go? Where do I start?
Well, start by talking to us and let us dig further into your case to kind of see where it is and what we can do.
Thank you. I do appreciate that.
Hi, and thank you very much. So we have suffered a total loss. We do have extended replacement in our policy. We've pretty much decided to replace rather than rebuild. Here's my concern. When we go out into the marketplace looking for a home and find one we like, in all likelihood it's going to be available for a very short time span. We have to assume that because that's the way the market works. If we find the home we like, and we then have to go back to the insurance company and say, now would you please cut me a check for the extended portion, I'm concerned that that's going to take the usual, bureaucratic time that everything takes with an insurance company. I'm going to lose the opportunity to buy the house I wanted to buy to replace the lost house.
Understood. And what I had mentioned earlier is the first step is to evaluate what you lost. So once you know the full cost of what you lost to rebuild, and if that goes above your policy limits, and that includes any building code upgrade if you have that coverage, and let's say you have $500,000 initial policy limits, and then you have, let's say, a 50% on top of that. And so So let's say you come up to, you get a rebuild estimate for what you lost, plus building code upgrades and landscape, whatever that is, whatever that math is. Let's say it's $850,000. Then you're eligible for that $850,000. You're subject to the 500 and the 250. So in that case, you'd be eligible, let's say, for the full 750 to use to replace. So the first step is to get agreement as to what it costs to rebuild. So there's no need to go back to evaluate what the dollar amount is once you've chosen a property. You've already done that on the front end so that you could then do what you want to do, which is make offers on houses without having to circle back with the company. The only thing you will have to do is to make sure that they have adequate notice to be able to look at the property, to evaluate what you're doing, to make sure you're spending at least that amount, and then just let you know that they're going to pay it, through that purchase process.
A related question, which may be out of the scope of what we're doing here. We have a mortgage on our burnt-out property. I'm going to guess that there's no hard rule that requires the mortgagee to move over from the burnt. I'm going to guess it's a negotiation, but that's my guess. Can you tell me a little bit more about if there are any rules that govern this?
Yeah, I mean that's really outside of our expertise in terms of how the mortgage works. But in most cases, it won't transfer over to a new property. It would probably just be a new loan. So you'd have to work with your lender, let them know the situation, and then work out something with them in terms of timing of how they would want to receive their portion of the funds. But as far as the rules themselves, I wouldn't be aware of them.
It's a conversation.
Right.
Thanks.
Yes, if you do file a complaint and the insurance company says, no, we don't see it that way, and then you go to mediation, you said that it's not binding for us, but it's also not binding for them. Is that correct? Because they can just say we're not.
That's correct.
We're not going there.
Correct.
We have no interest in it.
Yeah, to give you an idea, after the 2017 series of wildfires, Santa Rosa and other areas, we received about 700 complaints, requests for assistance. We were able to recover about $70 million for individual homeowners. And that is before it even went to the formal mediation process. And then we were able to recover another $5 million, or I think it's growing at this point, on the cases that actually had to go through the statutory formal mediation process. So we've had a number of successes looking at these issues, both internally through our complaint system as well as then through the mediation process. But you're right, it is non-binding on either party, but it does in many cases result in a resolution.
Okay.
We can tell you at the front desk. I don't know them offhand. Several of the major ones as well as some of the smaller ones, either based on the appointments that we got. If we had 10 people that called and wanted to see a certain company, we'd ask them to come. But most of the major companies, and then some smaller ones that had either losses or appointments today that we called up. But the front desk will know what specific appointment companies are here.
Today I signed up for 20 minutes, but I know that the 20 minutes will go fast. I have a lot of issues. So to file a complaint, and more issues will probably come up, how does that work? You can continue to deal with whoever your case person is with the insurance commission and continue to talk to them?
Yeah,
once is it limited?
Well, no, we'll initially look at the first issue you present to us. We'll attempt to resolve it. And if, let's say we resolve the issue, delay or the inventory issue, but now you have a structure inventory with it, issue with regard to your structure, we'll then, in most cases, depending on logistics, assign it to the same officer, and they'll have your other information available to them, and so they won't be reinventing the wheel, and they'll be able to look to resolve the additional issues that crop up. So in most cases, we're able to keep the same compliance officer, they're called, with the department assigned to your case. It just depends on what's going on, or if they're still with the department or whatever it might be.
Okay.
But in most cases, that would be the case.
And when you do talk to a compliant officer and you say, for example, do they have to look, like in her example, do they have to look at the label or the type of clothes it was, as opposed to just saying there's 25 pants, and so you go and you talk to the person, you say, well, I have these labels, shouldn't they be looking at that? And I'm told, well, it all depends on what the insurance wants to do. I mean,
Yeah, that shouldn't be our answer.
Okay, all right.
I mean, you're eligible to receive payment based on what you lost in the specific items and brands
Okay,
that
so
you lost.
there is some guidance as far as what basic rules dictate.
Yeah, and in some cases, we ask the insurance companies to try to, let's say if you have 100 CDs, that not make you list 100 CDs and the name and the artist, everything, and they could bulk some of those items. But if you have certain other items,
Right.
That are unique in and of themselves, even though they're pants or shirts or whatever they may
Right,
be,
right.
then you're certainly able to, in those cases, flesh those out and again, provide condition or value
I
to
haven't
those.
turned my inventory in, but I perceive that's what's going to happen. I don't, they want to
Yes.
know the age and everything else, condition, everything. So for every item. So
Yes, and we can help you through that,
okay,
process. So.
thank you.
Yeah, I've got a real quick question, Tony. Does Fair Plan report into your complaint database? I was looking the other day and I didn't see them.
There's not really a report into our database.
Well,
We record all the complaints that we get on every company, including the Fair Plan.
And do they get published online?
Yeah, and they get published online. So
Okay, I didn't.
So
I looked, I didn't see them.
So we'll take a look and see if there's some issue there. But I'm pretty sure they're out there. But I'll
Okay.
take a look again.
What about market conduct studies with Fair Plan?
Oh yeah, we do. They're online. Any of the exams that we've done of the Fair Plan would be online.
Hi, it's me again. So we bought our house in 2013, took out an insurance policy, and it went forward. At about the 60-day mark into the insurance policy, I received a notice from the insurance company saying that they're knocking down my coverage A and by about 40%. Reason overinsured, and indeed they did knock it down, and it was the reduced version that was in effect at the time of the fire. Comments?
Well, we certainly could take a look at that issue, if especially how close it was. If it was close, I'm not sure when it was to the fire.
No, it was this occurred in the conversation about the insurance policy occurred at the beginning of 2014.
14. Okay. Well, we would take a look at it. Like I mentioned earlier, if you believe you have an underinsurance issue, first is to make sure that you do. So let's say you have 750 of coverage, 1,000 of coverage with your structural coverage and your extended coverage. First, evaluate the rebuild cost, and if that's higher than 750, then you theoretically have an underinsurance issue. Then we would trace your policy from application process through each renewal to see what happened and why it happened, to see if there's room for us to go back to the company and say, hey, why did this happen? And was it your decision or the insured's decision? And if we think there's mistakes or issues, then we'll go back to the company and see if they can address those issues.
Would you suggest I talk to you folks before I spoke to a lawyer about this?
Yeah, I think in any case that you might have, I mean, it doesn't hurt to come to us first
Sure.
to take a look at it. We're free, and we regulate the insurance industry, so let us take a look at it to see if we can resolve the issue. We can't resolve every issue, but we have a pretty good success rate.
Anybody else?
Okay, well, I don't see any other questions right now, but we'll be here all day long. So if you see me and you want to ask a question or if you want to sign up for an appointment, we'd be happy to really dig into your particular case. But thank you for coming.